It's Drive Time with Holly. Business and consumer news you can trust. I mean, what else are you going to do sitting in traffic?
Yes, this is another edition of Drive Time with Holly. And I'm Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And you know, Holly, I know this is something that you do a lot, mostly for your job, but also for fun. And that is travel.
Yeah. You know, traveling for work, for the longest time, I thought that was something that was going to be a major perk of my career. And it's tough. And so we're going to talk about that tonight, about how you can make business travel a little bit easier. But along with business travel and along with personal vacation travel, traveling for pleasure, there come lots of businesses. There are lots of industries that depend on travel and tourism. And so we're going to talk to two of those tonight.
Especially here in Orlando.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are definitely dependent on the travel industry and the tourism industry. There's no doubt about that. So definitely looking forward to talking with our experts on that.
Yeah. So when I travel for pleasure, you consider a whole different set of information, a whole different set of criteria. And so it's interesting, the difference between business travel and personal travel, and all the different businesses and services that you depend on when you want your travel to go smoothly and you want to be able to enjoy that travel. You sometimes take for granted all that goes into making that a pleasurable experience. You
know, that really is true. My brother is someone who travels a lot for his work as well. And just talking to him, the more he got into the job, and I'm sure you noticed this as well, the more he realized the little things that can be very annoying or very helpful when you're traveling for work.
Yeah, and what's important to you. You know, for me, it's important that I get where I'm going as quickly as possible with the least number of connections, because the longer I'm in the air and the longer I'm commuting to and from an airport, that's the less time that I can be productive. And so, I really pay attention to how long am I going to be sitting in an airport? Can I get to an airport that can get me on a plane and out quickly? And so, those are things you may not necessarily pay such close attention to when it's travel for pleasure.
Yeah, and you mentioned right there that when you're traveling, a lot of times, most of the time, most likely, it's on a plane.
Yeah.
It's through an airport.
Quickly.
I mean, we all have traveled in the car. We've gotten the family in the car and we go up I-95 and maybe travel up north. But most people, when they make their travel plans, especially for business, they're getting on a plane.
Yeah, obviously getting on a plane is usually the fastest way to get somewhere, except, we've talked about that sometimes getting to the airport, getting on a plane, that can be a lengthy process. And sometimes you want to throw your hands up and say, forget it, I'll get in the car. But there are people and there are airports and there are professionals within those airports whose responsibility it is to make sure that this travel is as pain-free as possible. We want to travel you. We want to get you there. And we want your flight to be the last thing you think about. We want it to be enjoyable, but we don't want it, we want it to be a mode of transportation, not, I got to fly, there was a time when we were all felt lucky to be able to get on a plane, and it was a really big deal. And now for many people who have to travel for work, it's a necessary evil. And so I think
necessary evil.
Yeah,
That's
there are a lot of
people
who want to put the comfort and want to put the pleasure back into travel.
Well, and we are going to talk to one of those people right now. We are going to talk with Lauren Rowe, a familiar name.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, familiar name and will be a familiar voice, because she was a news anchor for News 6, Emmy Award-winning news anchor.
Is that why she brought that with her?
Yeah, the Emmy's right here. It's sitting.
Very funny. I have a pocket-sized one. I keep it with me.
A pocket-sized Emmy. That's great.
I put it on my dashboard in my car.
It's a keychain.
Just to remind me of the old days.
Yeah, but right now she is the Director of Communications for Orlando Sanford International Airport. And Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. It's very fun to be here to talk about really probably my favorite topic. I like talking politics too, but travel's definitely more fun.
Well, so
we won't end up hitting each other.
These days,
so it's much more fun this way.
And I'm sure that transportation and the airline business and the airport business is much more multifaceted than you ever gave it credit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When I first came on board at the Orlando Sanford Airport, I was, let's just say I was a little clueless when it came to actually how airports work. I'm a huge travel buff. Our family is, we're big travelers. We honeymooned in Vietnam and Cambodia.
Wow.
Our children have been to the jungles of Costa Rica. Several years ago, we try to travel every time we have time off. In fact, I think my husband will go in deep depression if there's not actually a trip planned on the books. And I'm not joking. So when I came on board, I was just really excited to promote Orlando Sanford International as a place where you can get to more places nonstop, and you can't imagine how many places you can get to from Orlando Sanford. And at the same time, I've learned so much about aviation. We just celebrated our 75th anniversary.
Wow, they've been around 75 years.
Of the commissioning of the Naval Air Station, Sanford. So the beginning of the military experience at Sanford, the Naval Air Station. So we just celebrated the 75th anniversary of that, and we culminated it with the groundbreaking for our new terminal expansion. So that was super exciting, and I learned more about aviation than I've ever known, and the rich history that's there. It's really an awesome place to work.
And I have to say, I've traveled for business and I've traveled for pleasure out of Orlando Sanford, and the parking is easy. The ticketing, the security process is as pleasant as it can be. Mm-hmm. There aren't huge lines. It's very convenient. It's an easy process. Tell us something that we might either take for granted or might not know about Orlando Sanford.
Well, I'm a downtown Orlandoan. Never left downtown. Been there since I moved here, almost 20 years ago. And I actually, when I first started working for Orlando Sanford Airport, I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to commute all the way up there. And I can get in my car in downtown Orlando, a little south of downtown, get on the 417. Never, ever do I have traffic, ever. Maybe coming home at rush hour at the end of the day, I might have to wait for 10 minutes in traffic. Get on that, go over beautiful Lake Jessup, which I love to drive over every day, and get to the airport in 20 minutes time. I mean, it's so simple. You pull right up, you park, and I get to my office. I mean, it really, and I'm always late. So this is an excellent way for me to be able to get to the airport.
It's interesting that people, probably a lot of people out there like you that have that preconceived notion that one of the reasons they would not want to travel out of there is they think it's too far away, but they don't realize it's only 20 minutes away if you live downtown.
And the other thing is, it's not always about the distance, right?
Yeah.
It's about the feeling you have while you're going the distance.
I couldn't agree more with that.
You can say TSA wait time is this, right, at an airport. Oh, well, you're only going to wait 20 minutes. But are you waiting in chaos, or are you waiting in an experience that actually doesn't feel like it's that long? By the way, you don't usually wait that long at TSA at Orlando Sanford International.
I didn't when I traveled out of there.
Right. So if I have to drive, if I'm driving 20 minutes in complete traffic and chaos, and for our visitors who come here not knowing where I'm going, or am I driving one nice highway all the way down, no problems? It's the experience. It's that really no hassle, comfortable experience. It just makes travel fun again.
And two, once you get in your airplane seat, once you get into the airplane, exactly where is your blood pressure level, And so I think if you've gone through chaos, getting to the airport, parking your car, getting through security.
Sometimes just dropping someone off is chaos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So obviously tonight's show, we're going to talk about travel. We're going to talk about tourism. I think a lot of people make some assumptions about Orlando Sanford. They're only flying charters out of there. It's a private airport.
It's all for the Europeans.
All for the Europeans.
These are all the things that people think of Sanford.
Right.
At one point, that was back in the day.
Are there still private charters, and is there still a private side, if you will, to that airport, or is it all major carriers coming in and out?
Well, actually, there are lots of major carriers that come in and out of there. Allegiant, of course, is the most important one to us from a capacity standpoint. So we have over 70 destinations nonstop from Orlando Sanford, and those are internationally. Those are throughout the United States and in Europe and in Mexico and in South America and Puerto Rico. So that's why a lot of people don't realize how many places we can go to. On top of that, though, you take a look at the smaller carriers that we have that can be very important. So we have Allegiant, we have Via Air, based right here in Maitland. Just added a couple of destinations, southern destinations, places like Charlotte, Mobile, Montgomery. I have like a top 10 list of where to go this summer. And frankly, Montgomery, Alabama would be on my list for families.
Really?
Yeah, Montgomery, if you want to learn about the civil rights movement, is probably one of the most important cities in the country for learning about the civil rights movement. So that would be on my bucket list for families this summer.
I like that you want to go to learn some history.
Well, I think a lot of people do. A lot of people take the summertime. Yeah, and I think a lot of people take the summertime to try to enrich their children. Travel, for me, is the number one way to do that.
Sure.
And let's face it, when I have children, my children are 9 and almost 12, and we're not going to be going up to Paris, right? So we're not. I still feel that traveling domestically for kids that are not quite teenagers yet is still a great way to give them. Because, a lot of times they're going to want to go to faraway places. So domestically, it's great. So we do have, back to your question, we have a lot of different airlines. We do have TUI that flies over into Brussels and other European countries. We have Interjet, which has a direct flight to Mexico City. Also on my list of must-dos, whether it's a family or whether it's a couple that wants to get away. I mean, Mexico City, one of the culinary capitals of the world, if you're a foodie. So there are sort of some really great places that you can get to. But the point is, you can leave your house, especially if you're in Seminole County. You leave your house, you get to the airport in 15 minutes. You get through ticketing in just about the same amount of time. You get on the plane, and you get on a direct flight to your destination.
In a couple of hours, in a couple of hours, you could be in a very different place and started your vacation as opposed to laying over somewhere waiting to connect.
The nonstop flights is a big
where it's at.
Is a big plus for me. So we are talking with Lauren Rowe, who's the director of communications at Orlando Sanford International Airport, and we have much more to learn from her, and we will in just a moment. And if you have any questions for us about air travel or just travel in general, you can call 407-916-5400 or also text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. You are listening to Drive Time with Holly. I'm Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And we will be right back.
Welcome back to Drive Time with Holly. Business and consumer news you can trust.
Yes, this is another edition of Drive Time with Holly. That's right, business and consumer news that you can trust. I'm Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And today we're talking about something that a lot of people in the business community, a lot of people in the corporate world have to deal with a lot in their business, and that is travel, especially air travel.
Well, and certainly a hugely important part of Central Florida's travel and tourism industry is how we get them here. How do we get our business travelers? How do we get our traveling visitors, tourists? How do we get them here? And many of them, millions of them, come via an airplane from somewhere.
Yeah, I believe we're one of the top destinations for the corporate community in terms of conferences. Right. And
it's not hard to twist someone's arm, because I actually am hosting a conference in the spring, and I really tried to kind of fight it, because I was like, well, come on, guys. You're going to put it in my backyard? And believe me, you don't have to twist your colleagues' arms to bring them to Central Florida, because they're like, well, I'll conference for 3 days, and then my family will vacation the rest, or I'll join my family when the conference is over. In the meantime, they're doing the parks. So, yeah, certainly for business travel, this is a destination that you can oftentimes kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting how it started out a business conference trip, but it easily merged into part vacation.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, so we're joined by Lauren Rowe, Director of Communications from the Orlando Sanford International Airport. Lauren, how is Orlando Sanford contributing to the overall tourism picture for Central Florida? We think of MCO, we think of Orlando International. Is that what we call it? I call it MCO, but we think of the big airport, the Orlando Airport, as the big...
it's a behemoth.
The beehive, right?
Right, it is. It is like a hive.
Millions, moves millions of people in and out of Central Florida. But Orlando Sanford International Airport, what role do you guys play in contributing to the overall tourism industry?
Well, I think first of all, you have to remember the value of Orlando Sanford International. Our number one carrier is a value carrier. And so that's one thing that's important to realize. So when you fly into Orlando Sanford, most likely you are going to have a little bit of a better value. On top of that, I think it's important that people realize that Seminole County in general is growing at a huge pace as well. So as they continue to grow and they want to bring in more meetings, right?
Yeah.
More business planning. We have this great sports complex where we continue to try to bring in more sports groups, more baseball tournaments. So there are people who want to not necessarily want to go down into the Beehive area, right? And spend time in that chaos while they're here to either play a tournament or do a business meeting. So it's a great opportunity for us to get more inbound travelers who do want to kind of locate up there for the majority of their trip and then come down and do the parks when they would like or go back up. So I think that's one of the things that Seminole County Tourism is definitely working on, and we want to make sure we help with that. Our inbound travelers, 70%, outbound 30%. So that's basically the way Orlando goes. Most people are flying into Orlando. Not as many people flying out of Orlando. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people are interested in trying to build the community around Orlando Sanford International Airport. So more people want to stay in that area while they're here.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because there might be a misconception that downtown Orlando is the only reason to travel here. But that's not true, especially now. There's a lot going on, like you said, in Seminole County.
Yeah. And I think that, again, it is targeted marketing, right? It is deciding who really wants to be there and what they want to do while they're here. The other great thing I love about Orlando Sanford is that it's not just about getting off the plane, getting on one bus and going to one park, right? I know that's worked and it's been a great business model for that one particular park. But I think a lot of people who come here, especially those people from outside of this country, Europeans, are not as interested in that one destination. They want to hit New Smyrna Beach. They want to go up to Daytona. They want to go out to the Space Coast. They want to hit more than one park. They want to have their own vehicle so they can actually explore Florida and all the beautiful things that we have to offer that are not just Disney World. And so I think that's also a great opportunity for us to show that we really are in the center of all of those things. We really are. If you're talking about Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, we're really kind of in the center of those things. It's very easy to access all of those areas.
Or even Tampa.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's definitely a great airport for those people who want to think a little bit outside of the box or outside of the mouse, so to speak.
Well, and, the Orlando Sanford airport stats say approximately 3 million total passengers in 2017. That's nothing to sneeze at.
No, the growth continues every year. So we have record growth every year. A lot of that is due to Allegiant's success in continuing to add destinations and routes from Orlando. They've definitely helped us out in that area. That's one of the reasons why we have so many more outbound passengers as well, is because we have so many more nonstop destinations. And I have to tell you, I love, I do love going to the big places, right? I like going to New York City and Los Angeles and some of these bigger cities. We were just in Miami for spring break. I love that. But I also love meeting people who say, I fly to Knoxville out of Orlando Sanford International Airport. I fly home to this place, or this is where my favorite music festival is. I had no idea how many music festivals were in Wisconsin until I started researching all of the destinations that we have in Wisconsin. Apparently, Wisconsin's a big music festival state. Things like that you start to learn when you really think about traveling domestically and doing it from Orlando Sanford in a real economical way for your family.
And it's interesting you brought up nonstop flights, because a lot of times when you're traveling to those not big cities, that's the problem, is you have to take all these connecting flights, and it really just becomes a hassle. And then you go to Orlando Sanford International Airport and you realize Allegiant flies here direct, nonstop.
And there's something to be said about secondary cities. So one of the things that I think is really important in travel and a trend that a lot of people are talking about is secondary cities. In other words, getting to these big destinations, but using the secondary airport to get there. There are so many of them. There are some in Iowa that are outside of Chicago. Allegiant just put in a new destination to Newburgh, New York. Well, Newburgh is in the Hudson Valley. It's a beautiful place. You could go there just for its own destination, but it's also only 30 miles outside of Manhattan. So you're looking at things like that. great destinations, easy to get in and out of, not flying into the major destination, obviously more economical. And for people like me who like to have a little more flexibility, I always have my own car. And if you don't want your own car, we do actually allow Uber and Lyft and all of those car
really?
services now. Yeah. And I know that's been very controversial, and I haven't
exactly.
even kept up on it, to be honest with you. But the first thing I did when I came to Orlando Sanford, I'm like, we have Uber and Lyft, right? Because I know I use it a lot now too.
Right.
But we've got great rental car agencies, but you can get your Uber, you can get your Lyft. They've got their own parking lot to wait for you. And it makes it, I think, a lot easier for young people to travel, especially.
Right. So when you talk about getting to these secondary cities, I think it's interesting because if you're traveling personal, there are a lot of cities that Allegiant, for example, travels to that, maybe it would be much more economical to take your entire family to Chattanooga, Tennessee, or to Knoxville, Tennessee, and you can take them all on a plane because you fly them on a budget carrier on economic. What did you call it? You called it
a value.
A value. There you go.
It's a value.
A value. Yeah.
It's value.
And that makes pleasure travel so much easier. And I think, if an airport can help more people travel, then you've done your job to encourage travel and tourism, to encourage people to come in and out of Central Florida. And when it comes to our community's, economy, that's a great thing.
I'd like to, one of the goals that I have at the airport is to really build a community of like-minded people. I'm one of those moms that likes to be flexible, right? We will plan the long-term big vacations, no doubt. But when I come into a summertime and we don't have a major vacation planned, I'm going to start scouring a little bit. I'm going to say, let's see, I can get to Niagara Falls for $40 a person, or each way for a person, right? I mean, why not? We got no plans next week. Let's jump on a plane and let's go to Niagara Falls for, less than $400 for the whole family.
You're like convincing me right now to do
right?
that.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we want to create this community, a local community. We're going to call it Orlando Jet Set. It's really kind of a play on the whole jet set thing. Because, jet set originally was that term for all of the fabulous people that had all the amazing money that they could just jump on a jet and fly away in the mid-century, right?
Right.
So what I'm taking it the opposite direction. I'm taking jet set and I'm turning it on its head and I'm saying anybody could do a jet set. Anybody can be a jet set, and let's face it. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I don't even take the luggage anymore. My kids stuff everything in that one backpack.
Yeah. This is what you've got for the week. Make it count.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is what you got. We're not paying the baggage fees. We're not doing all of that. I'm going to stick it in you're going to put it in the back. My daughter just flew for the first time by herself over spring break. And everything in the backpack. Very organized kind of thing, right? Make it count. So be flexible and think of travel as something that you can do spur of the moment. And that's the wonderful thing. I think I've got an alert, at least on Allegiant, but on several different airlines, just
time to go.
Constantly thinking about it, right? It's great.
You got me thinking about it right now. That is the truth. So we've been talking with Lauren Rowe, who's the Director of Communications at Orlando Sanford International Airport. Now, one thing that comes up a lot when you're thinking about traveling, especially on a plane, especially long distances, is the kids.
Yeah.
What do I do with the kids? Do I take care of the kids? Do I find a babysitter? What do I do? Well, we have a possible solution for you, and we're going to get to that next. You are listening to Drive Time with Holly. I'm Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And we will be right back.
Welcome back to Drive Time with Holly. Business and consumer news you can trust.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Drive Time with Holly. I'm Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And today we are talking about something that is very important to Central Florida, very important to Orlando, and that is travel.
Yeah, travel and tourism. I mean, we that is our crop. That's what Central Florida, one of the main things that the world knows us for. I mean, we know obviously here that we have so much more, that we are so much more than travel and tourism, but no one can deny that that is our that's our industry, and that's what we depend on.
And it's important for two reasons. You have travel for pleasure, but there's also a lot of business travel coming in to Central Florida and going out from Central Florida.
Right.
And in the last segment, we were talking with Lauren Rowe, who is with the Orlando Sanford International Airport. And if you have any questions for her, by the way, you can give us a call at 407-916-5400. You can also text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. And we learned a lot about airports, about that particular airport, about how important it is to the community. But there's another aspect to travel that's on everyone's minds, especially if you're a parent.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that when you're wanting to travel by air, one of the first things you think about is, okay, what do I do with the kids?
Right.
Do I bring them with me? How do we handle this?
Yeah, especially if it's a business trip. You know, I attend a lot of conferences, and if I take my son with me, I have to make sure, obviously, what am I going to do with him during the day when I'm working? And not everyone is fortunate enough to be able to take their spouse with them or another adult who's free to travel, or can you afford that additional expense to have another adult traveling with you to care for your child while you're working? Or, as you mentioned before, Orlando is a popular destination for conferences and for business travel. And so, you know, if you come here, if you have a conference that's coming to Orlando, and let's say you have 500 employees and you know that many of them are going to bring their kids, or the conference is sold as, or the awards are sold as, you know, bring your family, kids come along with that. And if you want to go to a nice dinner, if the corporate function wants to have a black tie night, what do we do with the kids?
Yeah.
And
it's not always a good idea to bring the kids to a black tie night. I don't know, maybe.
You know, they don't always enjoy it, and neither will you, quite frankly.
Right.
And so in steps our next guest.
Yes, we're talking with Cheryl Matchett, who is the president of Sunshine Babysitting. And Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Cheryl, how did you get, how did Sunshine Babysitting start? Where did, what made you start this business?
Actually, I've worked basically as a small business owner. I wanted to start a small business.
Mm-hmm.
And part-time, I worked as a babysitter for small agencies in town, little tiny ones.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, wait, I can bring this to the 21st century.
Right.
Put it on the internet, and it exploded.
Yeah, you really had a golden idea, it sounds like.
Yes. And I don't want to claim ownership to the idea because it started with somebody else's.
Well, but if you have made it successful, and if it's been a success for you and the people who work with you and for you, you know, you've made a difference for them. So yes. Who would you say is your average customer?
Tourists.
Okay.
They find me online. I have search engine optimized, everything, direct internet. Now, as I've grown over the years since 2001, I receive a lot of referrals from hotels.
Right.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Mm-hmm. And so they are tourists. Are they here for pleasure or here for business?
Both. And usually the business clientele, the organizers, I work with organizers, corporations. They set up a room and then we take it from there.
You fill it with fun.
Yes.
Because you can set up activities, you can set up, qualified childcare, so that the employees can, trust that you're going to take care of the little ones, and we can go have some fun with our colleagues. Mm-hmm. And when we pick them back up, they'll be worn out and ready for bed.
Exactly. And we'll take care of infants all the way up to teenage.
Wow.
So we separate the room out for the babies and have all the little toddler. It works out great, especially, and it also keeps families together, brothers and sisters of all ages.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So you were talking about there that a lot of times for corporate stuff, they want to rent a room and then you take care of the kids in that room. But do you also do individual services where you say go to where they're staying and take care of the kids while the parents go out?
Correct. Like this weekend through all of next week is Passover. Ooh, the whole place is going to be overrun with the Passover Seder.
So we have Passover coming up, people enjoying their Seders. Yes. It's a big deal for the Jewish community. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes if you want to have a very reverent, quiet, yes, then I can imagine that they want to make sure that they have someone qualified who can take the little noisemakers out of the room and do something fun with them.
Yes. And it's more solemn. Like this weekend and next week, we have a day camp. We're going to man the day camp at one of the big hotels. Then we have at least 30 families, 15 or 30. It depends, because a lot of times they cancel. And they have a babysitter come to the room. They go back to their holy observance, quiet, very formal, and then they come back, and it's a whole week.
Yeah.
And then after all of that, we always have our families that just come to Disney World.
Uh-huh.
They can't take the heat, or they need to keep the baby at the hotel, want to take the big kids on rides. That's where we come in.
Yeah. And I think, if you're traveling to a city like Orlando where you don't know anyone, you don't have any family, don't necessarily have any friends, you have to be able to make sure that you can find someone that you can trust. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about how do you vet your childcare providers?
They basically go through an extremely thorough vetting process. First, the application process, then a very proprietary background check, which is very, very powerful. It's designed to basically pick up what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas type things.
Cheryl's going to find out about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they're all CPR, first aid trained at a minimum, and of course experienced. And they have reliable transportation, very conscientious, everything.
So all highly qualified childcare providers.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's important, because if I'm going to trust a quote-unquote stranger with the most important little person in my life, I want to make sure that you have done your homework to make sure that that person is as well vetted as humanly possible.
Exactly. And it's within my best interest to make sure that they are, because
Absolutely.
I carry very important insurance coverage also, which is very important to parents.
And it's the name of your business. I mean, ultimately, these referrals that you said that you depend on from hotels and resorts and repeat service or repeat customers, your reputation depends on that.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's your busiest season? What's your busiest time of year?
Spring break, which is right around now, and it's just fairly busy throughout the whole entire year. It may drop a little bit. It basically drops when the hotel's room occupancies drop. Yeah.
So in Central Florida, I mean, that always floats pretty high. So yes. I would imagine that it's probably pretty steady, but you just you just see spikes.
Exactly. Like right now, we're in a huge spike. And I don't only cover Orlando; I cover the Keys, the Florida Keys.
Oh wow!
Oh okay.
Miami, Tampa, Clearwater, Jacksonville, Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville Beach.
So you're helping people have a quality vacation or a quality business stay, pretty
I have
much
a family
statewide.
Right now from the UK that spent 8 days in Jupiter. They're going to be down in Key West using my babysitters, crisscrossing over to Naples, Marco Island, and I don't know what other days they have planned.
How many people work for you? How many babysitters do you have in your network?
The total, put it this way, I have signed up well over probably 4,000.
Holy cow.
Do I win the best question? I win the best question award. 4,000.
But they don't, those people, I would say the utilization is about 1%. So I would say that on average, I really only use between 30 and 40 babysitters.
But you have a lot at your fingertips should you need them.
Mm-hmm. Like if I need to pull a group together, all of a sudden, presto, I have them all.
You can do that, yeah.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. So we're talking with Cheryl Matchett, who is the president of Sunshine Babysitting. And by the way, if you want to find out more about them, just go to sunshinebabysitting.com. We'll continue this conversation. I know there's a lot of parents out there who is ears perked up when they heard all about this.
Wait a minute.
This is an option that I have had all this time and didn't know about it. So we'll continue this conversation. And by the way, if you have any questions for our experts, you can call 407-916-5400 and text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. You are listening to Drive Time with Holly. I'm Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And we will be right back.
Let's be better consumers. You're listening to Drive Time with Holly.
Yes, and welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Drive Time with Holly. I'm Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And today we are talking about travel and two aspects of travel. We were talking with Lauren Rowe, who is with the Orlando Sanford International Airport. And then we're also talking with Cheryl Matchett, who is the president of Sunshine Babysitting. So we were talking about the means of travel, but also what to do with your kids.
When you get there.
Yeah, when you get there, or when they get here.
So, Cheryl, is it, I think a lot of people might assume, well, we'll just tough it out and you go to dinner, I'll stay in the room with the kids because they have some preconceived notion that it's going to be hugely expensive. What would you say is an hourly ballpark for what I can expect to have one of your sitters come to me at the hotel?
It would be based on the hourly rate of $16 per hour for the first child. Unlike other competitors, I only charge $1 per each additional. And I would say $70 to $80 for one evening.
And that's pretty typical of having a sitter come to your home.
Yes.
And, for the value of what you would get out of being able to go to a dinner, let's say you have done either work travel or you have done family vacation all day, and maybe, a couple or the adults want to be able to go out and have a nice, quiet dinner. I just think that having someone keep an eye on the kiddos and maybe even keep an eye on them when it's time to go to bed would be worth its weight in gold.
And a lot of times for business travel, that's reimbursable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
That's a good point.
So let me ask you one more question, and we're up against the clock. But can I take one of your sitters with me out of state or out of country on travel out of Orlando?
That would be something I would discuss with the sitter. I would not prohibit such, if basically I've never had that question asked by, I had the question actually asked once and they never carried it out. But yes, it would be up to the discretion of the caregiver.
If they felt comfortable with that.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people may want to consider, if maybe you've built a relationship with a particular sitter, maybe taking them out of area. Speaking of things to do with the kids, I know that the Orlando Sanford International Airport has a large expansion coming up, and you're going to have some opportunities for families to come out.
Yeah, we're going to, we have the expansion project. We did break ground recently. As I mentioned, it was the 75th anniversary of the commissioning of the Naval Air Station. In our expansion, when you walk into the terminal, there will be a World War II bomber up on a ledge.
Oh, that's
being
cool.
restored. It's a PV-1 Ventura from the World War II era. It was the first plane to fly out of Orlando Sanford International.
Oh, wow.
When it was the Naval Air Station. And we have a committee that has been working for years on this plane. It's going to be beautiful. It will be up on the ledge as you walk into the main terminal. It's really a neat homage to the past, but also a really cool thing for families when they walk in and they get to see this massive real airplane up there. So that's going to be a really neat part of the expansion. The expansion is also going to be easier for travelers. We're going to change the A and B terminal. What was domestic international, it will be arrivals and departures. So getting around the airport is going to be much easier. Even though it already is about as easy as it can be, it's going to be even better. We have new wayfinding signage. It'll be the most simple airport that you've ever been in, probably.
And am I able to use a rideshare service like Uber or Lyft when I come in or out of Orlando Sanford?
Yeah, great question.
Yes, you are.
So they can come right up to the curb where my family or friends might otherwise pick me up and pick me up there.
Yes, they can.
Yeah, I know that's a big deal for a lot of people. I know a lot of my friends that travel, that's the first thing they look for.
Yeah.
Is because they travel by Uber or
Okay,
Lyft.
and wait, hold on. My boss is listening and she text messaged me. She's like, playground. We are also putting in a full playground.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I can't believe I forgot about that. We're talking about kids.
Yeah.
We're putting in a full
Forget
playground within the actual around the gates. So, I mean, how cool is that? When I go to the airport, kids are like in the corner, right?
Well, they're huddled around that Disney Junior TV is where they are.
Exactly. And we're going to put a playground in where they actually can get some of that energy out before they get on the plane. And that's going to be really cool too.
And I'm sure, as with most development in Seminole County, this expansion, the airport is already a really big part of the community, but I'm sure with the expansion, there will be events, there will be opportunities for the public to come in and see the airport and see the expansion, see the playground, these different things. Obviously security is a big deal with airports, but I imagine that with this expansion rolling out, that the public will have an opportunity to come in and see it.
Absolutely. We hope to have some open houses and get some people in there so they can check it out. We've started to do a lot within the community, especially in Seminole County. We have new partnerships with Seminole County Schools, Seminole State College. We've got some partnerships with them trying to bring in more people in the aviation industry. We're always looking for people to fill jobs among all of our general aviation tenants. We have a lot of great companies up there, simulator companies. We have a flight school right there at Orlando Sanford International Airport. And we are building a new website with even more of this information more accessible. So in the next several months, you're going to be able to learn a lot more about Orlando Sanford International Airport, your own backyard airport that you didn't know that much about.
Yeah. I've already learned a lot just by listening to you on the show today. So we are almost out of time, but if you missed any of the show, we post the podcast of the show on our social media sites. You can go to drivetimeholly.com or like us on Facebook as well, and we'll post more information on there later on.
That's right. You can go back and listen to some previous shows, and we'll post some follow-up information from tonight's show.
Yeah, sounds good. So I want to thank our guests for coming on today and giving us a lot of important information. You've been listening to Drive Time with Holly. I'm Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And we will catch you guys next time.